o mga habol. Or excited na si Jason mag-present para makahinga na siya for this semester. Alright, so siguro antay tayo ng mga 5 more minutes. Baka may habol pa. I don't know if makakahabol si Dean Jomar saka si Sir Jeric. Parang they have prior appointments today. And puti nandito si Sir Lex, who is also a member of the advisory panel of Mr. Calao. Si Ma'am Rans, si Ma'am Ayan Villanueva will try to join us later. Medyo may meeting pa siya. So, but she said we can start without her. And then I think we will record naman this presentation so we can ask what they think. Then. So sige, let's start at around 10:05. So baka may mga habol pa. Baka may mga mabudol ka pa, Jason, na umattend. So, all right. All right. Good morning again, everybody, and welcome to the Graduate Research Seminar presentation of Mr. Jason Calao. This is part of the requirements for his studies under the Doctor of philosophy by research in data analytics and informatics. Medyo ito yung una sa maraming mga seminar presentation na gagawin ni Jason as part of his journey in the PhD by research program. And for today, he will present some background or foundational ideas, some related studies, and siguro some of the methodologies that he found that might be related to the dissertation that he will be doing. So, pero binantaan ko si Jason, huwag mong i-present muna kung ano yung gagawin natin kasi baka maunahan tayo ng mga people in the audience. But the main idea is he will talk about the existing literature or yung mga tingin namin ay magiging related sa kanyang dissertation, which is basically, which will revolve around the idea of optimizing emergency evacuation protocols. And we will explore several approaches and siguro primarily would be physics informed machine learning models because when you do one way to model evacuation protocols or emergency protocols is like a partial differential equation approach, but essentially mahirap siyang isolve analytically. So we hope that with the aid of JSON, we can discover some ways on how to leverage the power of data science, specifically those physics-informed models, in order to aid us to understand how we can make better evacuation plans whenever there are emergencies. So with us is Dr. Mark Lexter D. Delara, who is a member of the advisory committee of JSON. We have other members, though they were not, I think, either hahabol sila or they won't be able to join us today. Members of the panel are Dean Jomar F. Rabahante of the Graduate School, Professor Rancibel Marian Rojas Villanueva of the Institute of Physics, and Dr. Jeric S. Alcala of the Institute of Mathematical Sciences. So this is a general talk. So we hope the audience will participate later. Bugbugin natin ang mga tanong si Jason. But for now, let's ayan, ayaw niya yata. So for now, let's hear from Jason as he delivers his first seminar under this program. So the virtual floor is yours, Jason.
Thank you po, Doc. Sharing my screen. Okay. So, good morning to everyone. So, I think my slide is visible on your end. So, okay. So again, I am Jason Calao. This is my graduate research seminar presentation and welcome to our virtual session. So this is in partial fulfillment of the degree of the Doctor of Philosophy by Research in Data Analytics and Informatics. So the title is Optimizing Emergency Evacuation Protocols, a Physics-Informed Approach to Risk Mitigation. So with me today is my advisor and the chair of the panel committee, Dr. Neil Jerome Gargin, and the members, Dr. Jomar F. Rabahante, Dr. Rancibel Marian Rojas Villanueva, Dr. Mark Lexter Delara, and Dr. Jeric Alcala. And good morning also to our friends who joined us today. Let me just re-share my screen a moment. Okay, so this icon, I think we are all aware on this. This is a powerful icon when we see this on buildings. This tells the people that in case of emergency they should evacuate. But there are more to see on emergencies in evacuation. So in fact, as we all know, emergencies happen without warning and evacuation is often chaotic and dangerous. In a real world situation, when there are emergencies and people um, are meant to evacuate the building or the floor, it becomes chaotic and dangerous. And sometimes the crowd becomes the danger itself because everyone is trying to leave the perimeter all at the same time. So we could just imagine that the people would just rush through one single exit point. So um what we thought of them leaving the perimeter would eventually or would make it even worse, and so does the crowd becomes the danger itself. So the very entity that needs to evacuate the area becomes danger to one another. And so does optimizing such designs and optimizing how they're going to leave the perimeter is very important, especially in architectural designs, especially in setting up the layouts of a building. So, okay. So this is what we perceive and this is the reality. So under pressure and panic, massive crowds physically compress and surge simultaneously because people follow the nearest visible exit points. So I want you to focus on the perceive what we thought when we have, for example, a fire inside the room. So people would scatter, they would look into possible exit points. But in reality, since we know that there is one door, the common concept of the people is to go out also to the same door that they went in. But having not realizing that there are other options, that maybe the window, maybe they can break this certain partition so they can evacuate, because under such pressure, it is common that people would not really think that much on maybe breaking on these windows or this partition. Um, yeah, and they are missing out some of the important information because exits are limited and not always evenly used. Ay, nawala lang po. So, uncoordinated human behavior naturally lead to physical gridlock. So imagine there are hundreds of people in a certain, for example, amphitheater, and they wanted to go out on the same exit point all at the same time. So, what we would expect is there will be bottlenecks wherein these particles, we will treat them as particles. Um, we will be having that much density, and until such time from being a bottleneck we would have a halt, wherein the forward movement drops to zero, and there's a risk um attributed on the density of these particles. So therefore you have an increase in density, and that is pertaining to the to how much particles you see on the exit points. And when you have that, your movement or your velocity or the speed of this particle suddenly drops. And then, of course, there's a heightened of risk. And in dense environments, the instinct to escape creates the very friction that prevents it. So especially if the door opens inside, so it's one of the design that is being considered when it comes to evacuation or egress simulations. So just positioning it in in on our country, the Philippines, in 2025, the Philippines is ranked first in the World Risk Index 2025. Yeah, and then mainly because of its geographic fragmentation and high exposure to weather-related extremes, and that is not uncommon to us. And among these provinces, also Cagayan ranks the most exposed to river and coastal flooding. So aside from we are devastated with a lot of weather related extremities and river and coastal flooding, the Philippines also is according to Rollins and Stein, Philippines is 100% an earthquake country, and Luzon is common to these, and it is surrounded by west and east faults. So and the country is prone to tremor, having an average of 30 ground shaking on a daily basis. So aside from this, from the hazards and from the natural hazards and disasters that Philippines experience, and positioning also the Philippines in a very risky situation. The question is, can we test evacuation strategies in real life? Kasi nga naman, if we're going to look on to the premise, since Philippines is um, on the risk list, and also Philippines is experiencing these tremors, can we test na lang the evacuation strategies in real life so that um, when if it will happen in the future, we can mitigate the possible risk? Well, we can, but we cannot ethically recreate panic and chaos in a safe environment just to study it. It would be unethical to do that, or it's just we cannot recreate panic. So the drills that we are doing in our school, in our institution, in our organizations, most of the times people are not in panic or in chaos. Whereas in a real setting, when a disaster occur or a natural hazard occurs, um, majority of the people are in panic, in almost like in a chaotic state. So there's a saying that every second counts when disaster strikes. But what if we could predict before it happens? Well, what if we could simulate before it happens? And having said simulation, it's a digital imitation. It's an imitation, a digital representation of a real world scenario, processes, systems, by just simply using the computer. Because again, we cannot ethically just recreate panic and chaos. So we're just going to ask for the help of our computers to simulate it and to represent the real world scenarios. And furthermore, PINNs, or physics informed neural networks, or in general, the physics informed simulations, it uses the physical laws or attributing these physical laws to our particles and giving them that characteristics so that we'll be able to identify or we'll be able to predict their movement, their possible behavior, what would the agent behave when it comes in contact with other agent, when it comes too close to a window or on a wall. So that is what we meant about the physics and form. So we're just going to give them an attribute. We're going to give them these characteristics, and these are all based on physical laws. So the core idea is we have to create an agent. So who is an agent? An agent is a digital twin. It is modeled as an agent, or sometimes they call it as a particle, bound by spatial awareness and specific behavioral rules. So there are three things that an agent possess. So first is the goal. For example, in evacuating a room, the goal is to get the rule. The goal is um, to be able to evacuate at the most efficient time and to navigate what would the agent um do if it comes in contact with a furniture, with a wall, what would be the interaction with other agent as well. So these are the features of an agent. It is a goal, it can navigate, and it can interact. So we're calling them as an agent because people behave like moving particles with an intention. So the with intention is what we refer to the physics and form. And these people are moving like particles. So um most of the research is based on the social force model. And the social force model highlights the goal, the navigation, and the interaction feature of an agent. So, for example, this is an agent. Um, it would have it will have a natural repulsion force when it comes in contact with a human or a wall. It is attracted to the goal or to the exit, to the target area, and it can avoid solid structural obstacles. So that is basically the considerations of an agent when it is needed to evacuate or to get too attracted to the goal or the exit point. So the the basic definition of a social force model, it is a microscopic simulation that treats agents as particles driven by physical forces and psychological motivations. So not only it defines physical forces but also psychological motivations because the the mere point of the agent reaching the goal is actually its desire to exit or its desire to reach the target point or the target area. So, if that would be the case, then we can amplify or we can multiply how many agents we want in a certain enclosed environment. So, for example, um, okay, so for example, the crowd. We multiply the agents so that we can see their interactions when we see it on the on the layout of a certain building or a certain floor plan, and we can see that crowd moving toward the limited exits, and we can see areas of congestion node, and it forms bottlenecks. So the bottlenecks are, we see the concentration of the particles or the agents. And when the bottlenecks fails, we call it as a failure point. We're in too much, there's a high chance of stampede here. Probably, if simulation would consider death case, that would be one of the scenario in on the failure point. Um, Yeah. So on the core idea, the crowd becomes the threat. because there are congestion, there are bottlenecks, and there are failure points. And as from what we can see here, it is mostly attributed by how the building is designed. So if one would like to simulate the flow of the agents and of course imitative scenario, the most efficient way is to pattern it also on the floor plan of that building so that it would be more realistic. So this becomes the what they call the faster is slower effect. So assumingly all particles here or all agents here are moving faster, but however when they come to this point on the failure point or on the congested area or the bottlenecks, they move very slow. In fact, they might not be moving at all because faster movement can increase congestion. And then panic can reduce overall efficiency. So therefore, onti lang talaga makakalabas because it is much slower and then they are in panic mode. So therefore, moving faster does not always mean escaping faster because of the design that is has to be considered on the simulations. So optimizing pathways, obstacles, and exit points. So on this example, the exit point is on the on the center of the room, and then optimizing it, nilagay nila sa gilid, they put it on the walls, and then this small design can change the way that the particles move or the agents move. They can even save lives. So that is what we meant about optimizing pathways. So having known the bottlenecks or the congestion areas in a certain floor plan, architectures or maybe policymakers or the one that decides for the institution can look into these results to make data-based or simulation-based decision making, where to put the doors, where to put the exit points, and what are the obstacles. So from this graphic, we can see we have wider pathways, we have clearer signage, we have obstacle placement. So this is the optimized design of a of a an sorry po of a an enclosed environment or an area or a room per se. So of course it can be applied in a real world scenario. So we can apply it on a high rise building. These are just examples. Um, but one of the considerations is the stairwell. Um, also, so how many particles are we going to employ each floor? And if we can also include the demographics of each particle. Because aside from giving them behavior, we can also give them specific demographics. So it can also be applied to transit hubs and large scale events. So from what we can see here, of the simulation or physics informed simulations for emergency egress can be applied for both microscopic and macroscopic scales. So earlier we mentioned about social force models or the SFM. Um, as described, it is a microscopic simulation. Technically, it's a simulation of pedestrians, how the particles or how the agents move from one point to another. And these particles might encounter um wall or might encounter window, might encounter secondary exit points. But technically, according to Helbing, Farkas, and Big Sec, social force model is has an it is attributed through the driving force, obstacle force, and repulsive force. So in the driving force, it's a self-driving, meaning it's the desire of the particle to move from this point to the X or the target. And the obstacle force is when they come in contact on a solid boundary, like for example, a wall or maybe a window. And repulsive force is it's their natural reaction when they come in contact with other agents. So in social force models, you we can give them a bubble, a personal space bubble. So we can set that, for example, if we set it on 0.35 meters. So if an agent comes in contact too close on that bubble, the other agent would react also. So this figure shows us that with the distance being closer to one agent, an increase in repulsive force. So we can imagine that like magnets with similar polarity north to north. So they would repel each other. Um, on this case, discomfort spikes drastically as agents come too close to one another. So from what we can see here, 2 meters, the repulsive force is around 0.037, and when it's around 1 meter, it rises up to 0.271. And then when we have around 0.2 meters, ganun lang kalapit sa atin or sa agent, we have a repulsive force magnitude of 1.341. So it's actually 5 times stronger. It has 5 times repulsion force with the agent moving closer just 80 centimeter. So from 1 meter, lumapit sa atin around 80 centimeter. Um, then nag-spike na yung repulsion force or yung discomfort nung isang agent because of its personal space that the researchers or the the researchers or the one who simulates it um can set actually. um this is a GIF, so it's not working on my end. May I just reshare another slide. Okay, yeah. So sharing again. So this is an example of So this is an example of the agents moving to the target. So this is a simple simulation of the particles. So agents start spreading out and head directly towards the exit because of the driving force that dominates. As we mentioned, under the social force models, the first force is the driving force. So which means that it's just the desire or it's just the goal of these particles to move to the target destination. So now, what if we have two directions? So we have here the red and the blue agents. So pedestrian with bi-directional flow interaction. From what we can see here, the agents line them up actually. You can see from when they come in contact that moment, they line up into a row so that they can pass through each other efficiently. And then also we can see momentarily that when two agents meet head on, they slow down because again they have that repulsive force in nature. So not only we can technically sign or teach our particles to move on a certain direction, but we can also tell them how to line them up and what they're going to do when they come in contact in a different direction with other particles. So this one is crowd evacuation flow rate. This just tells us the pedestrians per second. So this is the um this has the same number of particles or agents because I used here 40, so dito rin 40. So from what we can see here, it took the 40 pedestrians or the 40 agents to evacuate the area after driving themselves an 8-meter distance within 4 seconds. So an 8 because they're moving we set it um around 2 meter per second. So, in total, we have 8 meter. So, medyo mabilis yun. They were able to cover an 8-meter distance for 4 seconds. So, technically, if simulating this, one has to consider where are their starting point and the demographics of these particles. And also, having to consider the other, for example, there are furnitures, there are chairs, there are tables there. But this is just a very, very basic simulation or how just to move these particles and how they can able to flow technically. So this is more of a very fluid flow of our pedestrian. So this is these are the information or the priors, mm, the data that we use to simulate this. So we have 40 agents. They're walking 2 meter per second, and they have 0.5 second relaxation time. So it means that it takes 0.5 seconds for an agent to accelerate to full speed when unobstructed. They have a personal space of 0.35 meters and their body size is 15 centimeter. So 15 centimeter because um according to literature, the basic um thickness of a human torso is around 15 centimeter. And since we treat them as circular particles, so that constitutes 30 centimeter diameter. So it only means that it is just the torso. It doesn't have a the muscles. It just in the incompressible bone density. So yeah. So how about other scenarios? What if our agents move towards the target? We can see that they slows down when they are too close to each other. So this is the exit point, exit the target. And then we can see our agents, they slow down. But you can see some imperfections on the simulation because nakakakita kayo ng mga multo. Ibig sabihin that some of our agents here, they literally goes through on the walls, and that should not happen in a real world situation. Otherwise, the wall is highly breakable. It's made of a thin sheet or maybe glass. But otherwise, hindi po sila makakadaan dapat dun. And also, if it's made of out of mirror or glass, it would take some time also for them to break it. Because we can set certain areas here, um, and then we can set kung gaano lang siya ka-breakable, yung rigidity niya. But anyway, so then if that would be the case, then maybe we're just going to make the simulation with hard wall constraints and higher wall repulsion rate. So from we can see here, our particles they move from the left going to the right because of the exit point, and we can see how they line up each other and how fast they are moving, they are reacting. So, um, that would be the case for an exit target. And that's across layout. But what if we have other optimized pathway? So from what we can see here, nilakihan natin yung gitna. However, since the exit point is also on the right, it will still funnel pa rin po. Magkakaroon pa rin ng bottleneck because we don't have an exit point here. We're just going to have larger density here, but they will still have congestion on this area going through on the exit point. So this is just a very simple twitch on the layout of a building or on a floor plan that almost changes the way that the particles move. What if we have other exit points? So from what we can see here, they interact more on the wall, and that is what we call the fluctuation force. So under the FSM, aside from the repulsive force, we also have what we call the fluctuation force, wherein they have different, or they have a fluctuation. Yeah, they have a sudden change on how they react when they come in contact with a wall or mirror or glass perhaps. So from what we can see here, majority of our agents, they went on our exit to or on the top target because that is where they are mostly attracted to, and tayo yung nag-set nun. And also you can see what some imperfection on the simulations. This one kinda cheated his way out, but turned out to be on an enclosed room. So what if we have a glass window? So the glass window would also treat we're going to treat this also as an attractive force. And hindi na siya masyado nakita dito kasi sobrang baba na lang nung rigid niya, highly breakable. And since it is the most it's the closest path to our agents, the majority of our agents, they went on to the other exit point. Okay. So let's look on how about evacuating from a room to surviving a dense crowd. So not only we're going to look into the published papers on how they were able to simulate evacuating the room, but also on how they were able to simulate or the results on of their studies, um, also evacuating the building or the pedestrian itself. So, a study by Yu et al., an agent-based modeling approach shows that the layout and design of a classroom affect the how fast and can evacuate during an emergency. So, for example, it says that 6.02 faster in a collaborative classroom with better desk arrangement and open movement with one exit. So um, they made an agent-based simulation with literal participants, and they what they did is they record how fast the agents exit or evacuate the room. So the situation first, the room has one exit, and they evaluate what kind of classroom setup would be the best for the participants or the agents to evacuate the room at the most efficient time. So in this scenario, I just highlighted some of their results. When they arrange the room in a collaborative classroom, meaning that it's like a laboratory type of classroom. There is one long table at the center, and then the students are seated circling the table. So apparently, they found 6.02 way faster evacuation and more efficient. Um, and then when they do that also to the other room with two exit points, it rises up to more than 30%. So it's now 36.51% faster. So this shows that even just a slight movement of the furniture of the tables, of the chairs, or how the students are seated in a classroom without altering the doors or the windows, it just showed that this simple movement can make a big difference. So another study that use an agent-based modeling approach, but this study they just use an 18,500 agents or digital twins. Then the scenario would be there's a fire that erupted and it spreads omnidirectionally. So of course, everyone is required to evacuate. So aside from that, what is the highlight of their studies that they were able to assign specific ages and specific genders and weights also that dictates the walking speed and the physical strength. So they considered children, senior citizen. So of course they have variations on the speed and physical strength, and then they also experience social force from what we described earlier. So when they come in contact with other particle, they experience that same repulsive force. And then one of the highlighter studies, they actually have this crush events. So it occurs when the combined pushing force of a crowded area exceeds an agent's health thresholds. So they were able to identify an agent's health threshold by the speed and the physical strength. So, yeah. And then what they found is that because they have three scenarios. One is the follow the crowd, the full knowledge, and the follow the leader. So the 18,500 agents under the full knowledge, they are assumed that they already know the exit points prior the fire incident. And then the follow the crowd is when our 18,500 agents doesn't know at all the exit points. And then when the fire erupted, they just follow the most feasible pathway where can they see the most of the most the areas which has the most density or where majority of our agents are moving. And then follow the leader. Another scenario wherein the researchers, they selected around 10% of the crowd that becomes leaders. So on the result, it states that um, the fatality risk is lowest when we have the follow the leader, and then it goes to severe when it's follow the crowd. So Having said that, having them informed also, or having them just a few population being the leader, or having the knowledge where are the exit points, so it gives the lowest evacuation time. So that this is the difference. And then also on their study, they were able to identify that the children seniors has the highest stampede victims. And then that would also constitute the crash deaths. So evacuation time and fatality risk decrease when the crowd follows the leader instead of following the crowd. Also, one of the limitations here, since in a simulation, particles, since they have a repulsive force, particles will not be able um to go on top of the other particle. But in the real situation, especially in stampede, that happens. A person over the person when stampede occurs. So those are some of the limitations that the researchers should consider. So another research included the emotional contagion layer. So this is similar to this research. Um, This one just highlights the trade-off between a moving agent toward an exit, or is the agent would align itself to the collective flow of the queue. Pupunta ba siya dun sa mas maraming tao or dun sa alam niyang exit point? And then the emotional contagion is that if we have a leader that knows and has good emotional and positive approach to their neighbor, what would happen to the entire evacuation? So these nodes or K shells tells us that, for example, this one, the yellow. The yellow node can influence many immediate agents, pero malayo siya doon sa mataas na K-shell. Contrary sa cyan na node, it has more widespread and global impact. Both node describes a different distinction. So, meaning to say, if you have leader, if we're going to set yellow as a leader and we're going to have cyan as a leader, yellow can have a um, direct communication with its neighbor. Cyan has global impact or global connection. So crowds can naturally recover from sudden disruption. So in their study po kasi they were they were simulating to which an orderly particles or agents become chaotic. So on their results, they highlighted that when you employ the cyan, when you have leaders that has widespread and global impact, they can naturally recover from being chaotic into an orderly agents. So highly connected, influential individuals using calming and positive cues. So that is very related to this one. So there's research also that uses physics informed, quite literally the Navier-Stokes equation. So on the Navier-Stokes station equation, they attributed the specific factors here as, for example, collectiveness, conflict, stability, uniformity. However, this is more of a macro um, application. And then using the Navier-Stokes equation, they were able um, to reveal that the proposed physics environment information network model can significantly outperform other models because they compared what they did. So what they did here is that they have two streams. First is the physics informed wherein they computed the Navier-Stokes equation, and then the other one is the environment perception stream. So they considered also the in the macro scale. Then they attributed that both, and then they compared it to other existing methods. So what their proposal of physics environment informed stream outperformed other methods. Okay. So what works best? So I think one of the key question is what is the best machine learning, or what would be the best approach when it comes to simulations like this? So a systematic review by Bergold et al. 2026, they highlighted these machine learning models. So firstly, the traditional machine learning models, they mentions that random forests are robust, highly expressive to overfitting. When when you want a highly expressive, robust, and more complex, and especially when it involves multi-agent crowd settings, k-nearest neighbor support vector, decision tree, and regression um would not be appropriate because um they are highly interpretable. Ibig sabihin, mas madali lang silang gamitin. They can be used if you have lower population of your agents. So from what we can see here, does not necessarily account naman talaga that they are the worst or they are the best. Actually, that's why we have a quotation here, because um it depends on the purpose. It depends on the data that we have on what kind of machine learning to be used. So on the same systematic review, under the deep learning models, they highlighted generative models and GNNs are powerful when it comes to complex social interactions or multi-agent crowd settings and generating diverse crowd paths. But it has limited computational resources. MPS has simpler predictions without complex requirements. And the reinforcement learning models, proximal policy optimization, PPO. So these are more of it requires or we can input a more diverse agents and crowds on the reinforcement learning models. So for example, we have here I don't know, the PPO. So one of its strength that they mentioned on the review study is that it is good for achieving stable and robust training data set, and generally easy to tune or to use. Um, However, one of its limitation, it is limited on data limited environments. And since it is an on-policy algorithm and highly in sample inefficient. So another one is the deterministic policy gradient, or DDPG. One of its strength is simulating realistic human trajectories in a continuous action spaces. And however, using these, they highlighted that using these, the environment would require um because the DDPG is sensitive to hyperparameters and noise. So that is one of the considerations for future researchers who would like to use the model. So, what works best for future researchers? So, what if I'm the researcher, what would I use? Oh, so having presented some of the published paper, the some of the good papers that I found online and quite recent, um, I think one of the considerations also is to consider the anthropometric diversity, wherein our agent would have, aside from the social self-driving forces and social forces, our agents are quite diverse when it comes to body dimensions, demographics, shoulder breadth, because that would affect the evacuation speed. We can set a certain population, um, where can we apply this diversity, and also maybe if you are someone who would be doing the simulation, maybe a short list um of how many occupants in a certain building, and if you can get their demographics, that would be better. Also, door positioning, you can simulate um, different situations, different setup, wherein you would have the door on in front, you would have the door on the side, on the door on this area, and whatever. And then you can optimize. You can select what is the most efficient setup for evacuating our agents. Because their positioning has something to do with the prolonged plugs, because there's a research that I wasn't able to include it here. They wanted to identify why on the simulations there's always a prolonged lags on bottlenecks. So apparently they found that since there's a limitation on the agents, because they will not be able to um, um be simulated on top of the other. However, on the real scenario, that would happen. And in the real scenario, um people people can adjust themselves since they have cognitive evaluation, and they can be flexible when the time comes or when an emergency calls for it. So apparently that's one of their findings, to which there is a prolonged collapse, and that is very important. So they found that to be able to lessen the prolonged plugs on the simulations, installation of the doors on the side is appropriate as well. And then also, if I were the researcher, I would designate leaders. So from the population with a calming, positive emotional cues, just like the researchers presented earlier. And then also focus on high degree and high shell nodes. What would be the implication if we focus on the cyan or in the yellow, the one that has a direct contact with the neighbor, or the one that has a global impact, a global connection with other no with other agents. And then also maybe architectural design for or floor plans. If I'm the researcher, it would be helpful for me to get the floor plans, and that can also be a simple feed to the CNN to rapidly predict the total evacuation time and generate density heat map. So those are just some of the things that a future researcher can do from the room, evacuating the room to evacuating the building or the floor. And then one might also consider other instances, such as if there are um cabinets on the hallway, if there are chairs or tables on the hallway, and so whatnot. So it depends on the situation of the real world setting. So I think I'm nearing on my last slide. So we cannot prevent every emergency, as we cannot even predict it, but we can engineer our escape. So the physics informed simulation allows us to study extreme danger in total safety. By understanding the physics of the crowd, we can design architectural systems that absorb panic, maintain flow, and ultimately save lives. So from what we shown just today, um, we're able just to show some of the research that we're successful in simulating these particles, treating the people as particles, and using the available theoretical theoretical understanding on physics, and then we're going to just apply them on these particles, and we just let them escape um, the area. So, and having said that, if we're able to know what are the bottlenecks, what are the areas with congestion, what one might as well recommend um, to the administration or to the institution the better way to engineer, to redirect, and to redesign the layout of a certain room, a certain floor. So that would be all. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for that presentation. Kala ko tatapusin mo hanggang slide 63. Binabahan ako eh. So, thank you for that. So, maybe perhaps now we can open the floor for some questions from our audience or our panel members. And Sir Lex. Go,
Hello
Sir
po,
Lex.
Doc.
Hello. Thank you, Jason, for that very interesting talk. Okay. Actually, I have many questions, but I will probably reserve them during the closed door proposal presentation. But for this public forum, medyo nasagot mo na yung tanong ko to kanina. But I want you to expound more on the significance of this kind of simulation studies.
Thank you, Doc. So yeah, as we know that in simulation, because aside from what I mentioned earlier, that we cannot just ethically simulate the panic and the chaotic system. Simulations is actually way cheaper than drills, and I think the closest data that we can have for a real world scenario during an evacuation is through a drill, yung mga earthquake drills, ganun po. Yun. So, with the simulation, we can also use this data as our prior datas to input them to serve as our baseline data, and then we can simulate them. So that is more linked to the medyo actual evacuation scenario ng mga tao talaga. But other answer to your question, Doc, the significance of simulation, um, of course, we can paano ko ba? Para po siyang Sims, yung puwede tayong maglagay ng pinto dito, gano'n. We can do whatever we want. But we have to be very careful because there are limits, and there are no such thing as good and bad simulations. I remember I asked this also kay advisor if we can test the best, but apparently in mathematical perspective, well, hindi talaga siya, we it's more of where can we use the certain machine learning, based on its requirement and based on the data that we have. So it's the importance also of, parang inulit ko na, but the significance of simulating them is having a proxy of what might happen, and so that we can mitigate the risk of it happening in the future.
Okay. Uh, I give the floor to other participants to ask questions. Although may follow-up ako.
Sige po, Dok.
Wala na ba ako na?
Wala po,
Sige.
sige kayo
Ikaw
po.
na daw, Sir Lex.
Ganito. Okay. So, I see, I understand that there are different architectures or structures, environment scenarios na pwede tayong consider, like whether it's fire, from inside or threat from outside or earthquake, iba-iba, di ba? Madami. And then may sinabi ka merong building na mataas, lahat sila
Mm.
pababa or paalis ng building, or kapag sa amphitheater, ganyan. So there are so many scenarios, then there are so many people that you can consider. Pwedeng uh, organize, may leaders, may proper protocol, hindi nag-observe ng proper protocol, ganyan. So you can actually do different kind of simulation. So ang question ko is, uh, uh, how how do you want to position your study in this very big landscape? And ano yung parang end goal mo? Ano yung parang dream goal? Kaya parang ang tanong ko is, how do you see your study uh, to be used in and have a real impact? Paano mo siya nakikita? Nagets mo ba yung tanong ko?
Yes
Medyo
po,
magulo
Doc.
na.
Yes po, Doc. Okay lang po, Doc. Magulo din po ako. Pero thank you sa tanong, Doc. Yes po. Well, let me just go back to the conceptualization of the research. Kung paano po siya na-create. Apparently, sa university po na sa RTU, meron akong hina-handle na isang project. And ang kailangan po ay malaman namin kung gaano ka-efficient yung aming parang evacuation plan in RTU. So that is more, we do some drills and etc. But of course, we don't do drills every day and or every month. So I thought of using simulation. But the priority data would be coming from the actual earthquake drills or file drills. So that is one thing that I think the application of this research, because as you mentioned, Doc, there could be a lot of things. So where should I position this? Honestly, hindi pa namin napag-uusapan ni Doc kung saan, pero my plan is to have it applied at least in our university. That's for the project that I'm handling, because at least for an institution or universities, you get to you have the standard or the ideal classroom size, the doors, palabas ba sa so paloob, gano'n. So merong mga nakalagay na may indications na. So ibig sabihin, pag hindi sumunod doon, mali yung design. And also, if the simulation shows na nagkakaroon ng bottleneck, it's because not following the standard. So that, I think, one of the application of the research. And from what you've mentioned also, the simulation would not stop from one floor, because there are a lot of floors. So I was able to detail it further. But one of the ways, pero with yung may license, yung ginagamit nila na Pathfinder. So yun, talagang ilalagay mo yung para siyang Sims. Meron kang mga tao, 3D models, bababa sila dun sa building. But it can be done through Python programming. But of course, with careful instructions. And of course, I think we have to take into consideration yung partial equations na nabanggit ni Doc kanina. Di ba, differential equations? Because apparently, ang dami po pala talaga nun. So, there's a lot of thing to compute first. But yeah, nasagot ko ba, Doc?
Yes, yes. So, yun lang muna, and good luck on crafting your proposal. I'm interested actually dun sa actual na objectives mo.
Yeah.
And medyo mahalaga kasi yun yung pag-craft ng actual objectives mo. And yun. I think there are questions from the audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Sir
Okay.
Lex. So yung in consultation with the panel, itatry pa namin na parang i-limit yung gagawin kasi tama nga kay Sir na ang daming pwedeng gawing klaseng simulations. Baka hindi matapos si Jason pag ginawa niya lahat ng gusto niya. May tendency kasi siya na kaya daming gustong gawin. So sige, ililimit po natin yan para naman makatapos siya, no?
Sige
So,
po.
yun po, sa tingnan natin kasi yeah, ang dami. Tapos ang hirap kasi niyang i-solve from the PDE point of view. Kaya I think machine learning can go into these kinds of problems. Yeah. May mga tanong sa chat. Hindi ko alam kung nakikita mo,
Opo,
Jason.
nakikita ko po, Doc.
Sige, si Ma'am Vixen ba to? So,
Okay.
yeah, can
But
you address
sagutin
those
ko na po
questions?
ako.
Yeah,
Thank you po.
sure.
So the question ay, thank you for the nice talk. I'm wondering if the simulation is actually being used in architectural studies or is purely theoretical. Thank you, sir. Well, the answer is it depends on the researcher. It depends on the administrator because when we do research, we do it. It's either we already have the potential beneficiaries in mind. But if we're going to turn over the result, it depends on the administrator. So even if I simulate the institution, the crowd flow, the pedestrian, the density, but if the institution would not see any merit on that, it remains theoretical. But sadly, that's a sad scenario because yun naman yung purpose dapat nun, from being the theories, having it applied, so that we can mitigate the risk. Thank you. So may isa pang tanong, sir,
Mhm.
sagutin ko na rin po.
Go.
You, good morning po, sir. I would like to ask, how do you account for panic or irrational behavior? So on the presented researchers, they already have like a default panic or irrational behavior. So what they do lang is that um when the particles or the agents come too close to each other, they describe it as in panic, or that the order of the agents becomes chaotic. But that's a very good question because that's a very difficult um characteristics to include in our agent. First, the question is, how can it be implemented? But you can do that by simply giving them, I forget, may tawag dun exactly kung anong tawag for example, yung air, 'di ba? So pag heated up yon, chaotic sila. So it's just like that, but meron pa pong tawag dun na specific na bibigyan mo sila, parang magsiset ka rin ng sino-sino doon sa mga agents mo yung under such on a limited time, yung movement nila ay very chaotic. But you can set that. But yun nga, the question would be, what would be the basis? What would be your basis? Paano mo nasabi na sila yon? And there's a lot of things to consider. May PWD ba dyan? Meron ba dyang hindi masyado nakakarinig? So, baseline data would be very good prerequisite. Thank you po.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And actually, yun yung kagandahan ng physics-based approaches because you have this, yung behavior ng mga humans. Of course, hindi natin mapipredict how they will act in a certain way. So, pero if you will assign this kinds of behavior, you know some people might act irrationally. So merong parang physics property that pwede mong i-attach sa kanila. When we try to model something, so when two things cannot interact with each other. Gusto ko siyang gawing isang PDE that follows some first principles in physics. Gagawin kong opposite yung signs nila para hindi sila mag-meet. So yung isa positive, yung isa negative, so that if I apply the physics model, mag-apply pa rin siya, and when they're near to each other, they will repel. Well, no. Pag parehas yung sign nila, they will repel each other. So parang ganun yung pwedeng gawin, but mahirap. So siguro dito rin papasok, Jason, yung lots of simulations when you put uncertainty into the model. You run Monte Carlo test for it. So tingnan natin yun. So yeah.
Sige po. Thank you po.
This is a very exciting problem actually, kasi we have seen solutions to this from the analytical point of view, from say a sort of a semi-deterministic point of view. But when you add this kinds of a different approach, which can factor in a lot of behavior, which can be learned from baseline data, I think maganda siya. Pero tama nga Sir Lex, kailangan natin tong yan, no? I-narrow down into something that is workable into a dissertation. But we will plan on that. So if there are no other questions, so thank you everybody for joining. Congratulations, Jason. Ihabol natin ang ating public seminar. So we expect more public seminars next semester when you
Yes,
enroll in Data 399, and hopefully, siguro Sir Lex, pag-usapan natin yung kanyang proposal with Jason probably towards the middle of first semester para kasi mabilis yung PhDR eh. So that hopefully by the presentation, second or third presentation sa dulo ng first semester, we can present some initial results para meron tayong targeted output for the next semester. So thank you all for coming today, and we hope to see you again in the subsequent presentation of Jason. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you po.
Congrats, Jason.
Thank you po. Hindi ako magli-leave doc, no? Tama ba?
Yeah.
Congrats, Jason.
Ay, thank you po, doc.
So siguro pwede tayo mag-usap muna nila Sir Lex ng
Opo,
mabilis.
opo.
Yeah. So thank you to the general